As we meditate now and to prepare our hearts and minds for giving God our offering in this part of worship, I want to again revisit with you some important issues where the last really couple of months we've been meditating on this issue of giving in the 21st century and how things have changed in how the church receives funds, and we want to make sure that as we think about that, we have a biblical viewpoint on how to give, so that we can navigate these changes that our culture is experiencing. And so we're in the part of our meditation where we've been looking at the Old Testament, and we've been looking at tithing as not being the standard biblically of how you give. The tithe was a law. It was a tax, and the Jews gave their taxes for the ongoing effect of their government. And so a couple weeks ago we began looking at free will offerings in the Old Testament. That's the standard of giving. We call it in the New Testament grace giving, but in the Old Testament it was free will giving. We saw it situationally, that when the Israelites gave for the establishment of the tabernacle, they gave free will offering, because that's the standard of giving in the Old Testament. And it's so much a standard of giving that God incorporated free will giving in the actual weekly ongoing giving of His church. Not only of the nation of Israel, not only was it situational, but it was also ongoing. And we looked particularly at the peace offering last week. Last week we looked at the peace offering. I want to spend a little bit more time on the peace offering, because the peace offering is the way in which an Israelite who wanted to give to God in worship gave to God through the peace offering. The first mention of the peace offering, of course, is Leviticus chapter 3. I want you to actually turn to chapter 7. I'll get there in just a moment, Leviticus chapter 7. But in chapter 3, God laid out the stipulations about how the sacrifice was to be offered. Particularly the peace offering is what we're concerned with. We looked at several important parts of the peace offering last week. Suffice it to say that which marked this sacrifice, in contrast to all the others, was its flexibility and its non-obligatory nature. The peace offering was very, very flexible, unlike the other offerings, and it was non-obligatory. The second occurrence, Leviticus chapter 7, God here lays out some additional stipulations for the peace offering. Now, in Leviticus chapter 7, 11 through 36, the people find out that the peace offering is really divided into three subcategories. There's the peace offering, which is the thanksgiving offering. There's the peace offering, which is the votive offering. And then there's the peace offering, which is the free will offering. These three offerings are subcategories of the peace offering. Each is different. The thanksgiving offering is different than the votive offering, which is different than the free will offering. These are all different. There are different circumstances that guide an Israelite as to when they gave these particular peace offerings unto God. The idea of a peace offering, of course, in a general way means well-being. The peace offering signified that you were in harmony with God, that you and God were on the right page with each other. And so you gave Him, as a signification of you being in a good relationship with Him, you gave Him a peace offering, either of thanksgiving, votive, or of free will. Let's look at the three of these. Well, let me read the text first. Verse 11 of chapter 7. Now this is the law of the sacrifice of peace offerings, which shall be presented to the Lord. If he offers it by way of thanksgiving, then along with the sacrifice of thanksgiving, he shall offer unleavened cakes mixed with oil, and unleavened wafers spread with oil, and cakes of well-stirred fine flour mixed with oil. With the sacrifice of his peace offering for thanksgiving, he shall present his offering with cakes of leavened bread. And of this he shall present one of every offering as a contribution, there's that key word, to the Lord. It shall belong to the priest who sprinkles the blood of the peace offering. Now, as for the flesh of the sacrifice of his thanksgiving peace offerings, it shall be eaten on the day of his offering. He shall not leave any of it over until morning. But if the sacrifice of his offering is a votive or a free will offering, it shall be eaten on the day that he offers his sacrifice, and on the next day what is left of it may be eaten. But what is left over from the flesh of the sacrifice on the third day shall be burned with fire. So if any of the flesh of the sacrifice of his peace offerings shall ever be eaten on the third day, he who offers it shall not be accepted, and it shall not be reckoned to his benefit. It shall be an offensive thing, and the person who eats it shall bear his own iniquity. So here we see the stipulations. God said there's three types of peace offerings you can give to me. One is thanksgiving, one is votive, and one is free will. Let me go over those quickly with you. First, the thanksgiving peace offering. This was the worshipers signifying their gratitude for answered prayer, for God's intervention. Has God ever answered a prayer for you? Maybe God's never answered a prayer for you. Maybe he has. God established for his people, if I answer prayer, give me a peace offering. Signify your thanksgiving for what I have done by worshiping me in your giving. See, giving is a part of worship. It signifies thanksgiving. Do you have anything to be thankful for? Then give an offering. The second offering, type of peace offering, was the votive offering. This is kind of self-explanatory. If a vow was taken by a worshiper regarding some matter he desired God's intervention on and was answered, or a vow was taken as to the expression of a response to a matter accomplished by God, then the peace offering was the means by which that was expressed. When you made a vow to God and God met the stipulations of that vow, what did you do? You gave him an offering. Why? Because you wanted to signify, God, you have done your part, let me do my part. The third type of offering, peace offering, was the free will offering. The free will offering was given by the worshiper in complete recognition of his unworthiness when he wished to offer praise and or thanksgiving to God for a divine bestowal that was unsolicited and unexpected. Has God ever just done something for you? You weren't necessarily praying for it. You didn't even know you needed it. But all of a sudden, something happens, and God just provides for you in ways that are unsolicited. God says, you know how you recognize that? It's called a free will offering. These three types of offerings give you the full gamut of the religious experience of a heart tuned to God. You see, God wanted to offer us a way to express our religious fervor for him in times of answered prayer, in times of spiritual commitment and focus, in times of God just doing what God does. God says, give me a peace offering. So what we see from this is that God is establishing in the Old Testament the basis and the foundation of free will offering. We give to God because God has been so gracious to give to us. We thank him for his answered prayer in our life. We give him an offering. When God blesses us in ways that we don't even anticipate, we give him an offering. When God does things in our spiritual lives and we find ourselves further along than we've ever been, we give him an offering to give thanks to all that he has done. One of the ways we express our worship to God is in how we give to God. Keep that in mind as the ushers prepare this time to receive your offering unto God for all that he has done for you.